Good morning. Out on another morning walk. You guys hear the birds in the background? I don't know if you can hear the song they sing for me when I go walking. My puppy, let's take a look. Look at her. Oh, she's a good baby. So let's talk for a second about masculine energy and feminine energy and how they act on scenarios. And this is really important because if you don't understand feminine energy, then it will frustrate you. And you'll work against a woman that can be helpful to you. And ladies, if you don't understand masculine energy, then you will feel oppressed by it. And somebody who can help you to move your life forward, you'll let them pass for somebody who gives you a zero accountability space. So men are supposed to bring something into a woman's life. And I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about how you affect the fabric of their reality. And women are supposed to bring something into a man's life. They affect the fabric of your reality. And I'm not talking about, pussy or cleaning up after you, okay? So what do we see in this world right now we live in? That is a gynocracy, right? What's a gynecologist? Gynocracy. This means that we're living in a world right now where female ideas dominate, okay? And what are we supposed to do in this world where all concepts need to be female-centric, right? Meaning that they need to be ideas that are well-liked by women in the majority, right? So what you're looking at is women who are focused on the marginal. They're focused on the intersectionality, where different sections intersect, intersectionality, right? It's actually a good word. I just hate the impact of it. But anyways, we're focused on the intersectionality of reality instead of on reality itself. And this doesn't really work for running a world, okay? Because let's say that you take, 1 million people, right? 900,000 of those people you can group into some major categories. But then you're going to have 100,000 of those people that only halfway fit into those major categories. And then if we look at even smaller divisions, you're going to have 1,000 of those people like this, 500 of those people like that, 100 of those people like this, 2 of those people like that. And so as you break down that $1 million or that million number of people, those million people, you'll find all this intersectionality at the edges. And the problem with intersectionality is hyper-focusing on intersectionality ignores the reality that the group is living in. The 900 plus thousand people who are like in the normal space. So I'll give you an example of this. And it's a really good one because it's playing out in our world right now. You've got the argument that is raging across the globe pertaining to LGBTQIA. So let's get this out the way first. LGBTQIA, people who are on that spectrum, that's their business. I don't have anything against these people. And I believe that they should be a protected class of human beings, just like women are and just like blacks are, right? In the sense that if people are violent towards these people, they should get additional punishment for hate crimes, right? But, there's a but. These folks represent a very small portion of society, right? Gay people make up roughly 6 to 8% of America's population. And America's population is about 330 million people. So what? 10% of 330 million would be 33 million. So we're talking about a little bit less than what? We're talking about a little bit less than, 30 million people, right? So that's a lot of people. It's a lot of folks. And of the folks who are LGBTQIA, folks who identify with a gender that is different than their born sex. These people are called non-binaries. The non-binary people don't believe that they are either male or female. They believe that they have a gender expression, and the expression of their gender, of male or female or something in between, right, is on a spectrum. It's not really completely male, or it's not really completely female, or it's not all the time male, it's not all the time female. So they don't believe that they have a binary gender. It's a spectrum for them. And so they call themselves non-binary, or NB, okay? And these are the he, she, it, they, them, zim, zar, zim, zalabuba pronoun folks, okay? Just because you're an alphabet person, an LGBTQIA person, doesn't necessarily mean you're a gender fluid person, okay? Gender fluid is the concept that sex and gender are two different words. They have two different meanings. And sex and gender has always meant the same thing up until, in the last decade or so. They've delineated these two words from one another. In the same way that car and automobile meant the same thing, right? Now they say, well, sex is what you're born as, and gender is how you choose to live your life pertaining to that sex. Do you accept it? Do you not accept it? Do you want to live your life with a different gender? And so gender, the word gender now becomes gender expression, right? So I've done a lot of reading about this stuff to try to understand where they're coming from. And this is like a religion. It's a concept of how things work that can't truly be clearly defined, but you have people who believe that you're either male or female, and you have other folks who believe that your gender is a choice in a social construct. Now, one of the arguments that they use to say that gender is a social construct is the fact that there are people who are intersexed. Intersex is different than intersectionality. All right, so intersex are people who are hermaphrodites, folks who are born with ambiguous genitalia. They aren't clearly male or female based off their genitalia. This is a mutation. This isn't something normal, that it's something that does happen naturally, right? But it is an unnatural variation of sexuality, right? So they use these people as a basis to make the point that, hey, not everybody's male or female. Some people are born with both, which is crazy, right? Human beings have two legs. We're born with two legs. Now, does that not mean that there are some human beings who are born with one leg? Or maybe even human beings who are born with three legs, but heal, right? But even though there are people who are born this way, okay, that doesn't mean that this is even though it's a naturally occurring phenomenon, it doesn't mean it's a natural state for human beings. And to try to say that because you have these people who are born with this, sexual aberration, where they have, sexual organs from both genders, right? Or mutilated, underdeveloped, deformed genitalia, that this proves that there's no such thing as gender, is a crazy argument that somehow has become a serious position. And folks within the medical community, this goes to show how much the corporatocracy can affect, the medical community and the overall national debate, because this is obviously an irrational position to take. But there are a lot of folks who are liberals who are arguing this point. All right, so of these people who are non-binary, right? Non-binary folks are gender expression folks, not hermaphrodites. The intersex is what they call them now instead of a hermaphrodite. Of these people who are non-binary, who have a different gender expression than their sex-born gender, they make up, at this time, about 1.2 million Americans. So that's 1.2 million out of 330 million. Now, 1.2 million out of 330 million is like 0.000345. So, you'd have to get a lot of people together to find one person who says, I am a he. I was born a male, but I'm actually, something else. I'm a them or a they. Okay? And so what they're trying to do, because we're in a gynocracy, and now we're going to circle back to the initial point of gynocracy and female-centric thinking, because women are focused on female-centric, or women are focused on the intersectionality, not intersex, right? These people want to change the way 330 million Americans talk based off the 1.2 million. They say, hey, we can't use words like he or she anymore because some people are intersex and you don't know. And the intersectionality of all of this is there are some people who are born sex females, but they want to gender express as a male. And so we can't use these words anymore because of the 1.2 million Americans that have a different gender expression than their born sex. We need to change the way the other 330 million Americans communicate. We need to change the way they write literature. We need to change the way our movies speak to one another. We need to normalize talking in a way that makes no assumption about gender, right, whatsoever, because there are 1.2 million Americans who have a different gender expression or are non-binary. And so this is the illogical thinking of the gynocracy. It's irrational, right? If something is true for the 900,000, then that is the rule. You don't make up the rules based off of all the intersectionality, because there's always going to be somebody who thinks something different somewhere. There's always going to be a special circumstance. There's always going to be some type of marginal argument you can make. And when you focus in that space, then you lose the ability to create any accountability. You lose the ability to create any standard, because there's always some exception that exists outside of any standard. No matter how many people, no matter if you have 329,800,000 Americans who are not confused about their sexuality or their gender rather, right? And if you got 1.2 million who do, right, 0.0003% of people who do, then all of a sudden we need to throw out gender roles. We need to throw out gendered language. Okay, so obviously that's fucking irrational. That's fucking stupid. But we live in a world where the feminine lead. Now, does that mean that all female thinking is bad? No. See, men naturally know that in life there are winners and losers. Now, why are men this way? Because we have to compete for women. So the reason men are this way is because we've evolved to be this way over 100 million years to get our genes into the next generation. Okay? So men need to get their genes into the next generation, and women only want to reproduce with the best men, right? Women as a group want to choose men who are, women are naturally hypergamous. They want to choose men who are taller, stronger, smarter, more resourceful, competitive, successful, stable, right? And so because these are the men that women want to reproduce with, men compete against one another to be the most productive. We look at what qualities we've evolved to organize our own selves based off of what qualities women look for the most. And what are women looking at these qualities for? Is it just vaporous, nebulous bullshit that is driven the qualities that women look for? No, it's not. All of these things can be traced back that a woman looks for to who would be the best to reproduce with, who's going to provide the most safety, who's going to provide the most genetic material to make sure that my child, the child that I have with this man, goes into the next generation with as many tools and resources and the highest probability of success. So that's why women like successful men. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? However, women as a group, right? Even the ugly ones, even the fat ones, even the ones that are not that bright and haven't accomplished very much with their lives, unfortunately, women who, let's take it above that and say women who are average. Average women nowadays don't want average men. They don't. Now, that's because women are naturally hypergamous, but they used to be realistic about what they could get. So a woman is always going to date up. So an average woman is going to date a guy who is at the top end of average or slightly above average if she can get him, right? And that's fine. You should get what you can get, sis, okay? But a lot of you are ending up with nothing because the standards you have for men are so high because we live in this gynocracy that has now removed all standards for behavior, performance, and even evaluating what you are and what you deserve and what type of man might look for you. We've removed all the language and the thinking that men use to evaluate women. So we've removed it from the conversation in society, but we haven't removed it from men. Like, men as a group are still not marrying fat women with degrees, right? They're still not marrying baby mamas, right? These women are having a hard time getting what they want out of relationship and dating and all of those things. Now, why? Why is it so important to remove these things from society, from women? Because now we're going to have a conversation about feminine energy and how we got to this state that we find ourselves in. You see, women, they bring to a marriage, they bring to a household, they bring to an environment unconditional love, right? The concept of it, not in practice, okay? The concept of it. In practice, women are the most conditional lovers in the world. Like, if you fail to provide as a man, like, you are going to be divorced. If you have a mental breakdown and you were a provider and you fall off for a year or 2 years or whatever, and you need to get yourself together, you will be divorced. Your wife will take your money and take your children and leave. This is a statistical fact. This is not me bashing women. It's a statistical fact. Number one, women file for divorce more than men do, right? At 70-80% rates. And in addition to that, the number one reason for filing is a man loses his job or has a psychological breakdown, okay? Which is fine. It is what it is. Guys, you got to toughen up. Toughen up, buttercup, right? Sucks to be us. Whatever, right? So, anyways, women bring the concept of unconditional love. It gets applied to their children, their male children. And it's unfortunate because they don't apply it to the men, but they do apply it to the male children. So the male children grow up in a zero accountability space of unconditional love. And then they go out into the world, and then women are incredibly conditional with them. And it's frustrating for a man that's raised without a father because his mother tells him that he's special, and he goes out into the world and every single other woman on the planet and every other single man tells him that he is not. So that's why you need a man in the household, because men create standards, men create accountability to those standards, men create self-awareness, reasonable, logical, realistic self-awareness. Hey, you're fat, lose some weight, right? Men create structure, responsibility. Those are things that guys bring into a household. Well-adjusted, well-socialized, fully developed men. That's what they offer to children. That's what they offer to women. That's what they bring into the environment and space of a marriage relationship and into most social situations. And the raging debate that we're seeing unfold online are women who are arguing to remove all standards, accountability, and any reasonable assessment of what we should hold ourselves to. And then you've got Men who are saying no. Right is right, wrong is wrong, good is good, bad is bad, fat is fat, skinny is skinny, and these things are playing out the way that they play out, not because of patriarchy and hierarchy, but because that is how reality is, right? At the end of the day, you can talk all the shit you want about unconditional love. You're still going to try to marry the big G. Shout out to the OG, Andrew Tate. You know, he calls himself the big G. And the big G is men who are, you know, successful, powerful, handsome, you know, tall. At the end of the day, you can kick all the shit you want about all the shit you want, and you are going to still consolidate as women on men who are what you would consider toxically masculine, or, you know, the patriarchal, the man who has ascended to the top of the hierarchy. So it doesn't matter what you say, because at the end of the day, you're still going to reward the men who respect nature with access to your body and children, because you have evolved to do that over 100 million years. And so this makes the conversation very frustrating for men, because you're saying one thing and doing another. You're talking about how you want the world to operate, but you yourself, you're not willing to operate this way. When it comes to your children and who you want to reproduce with and who you're going to give access to your body, you are on the same shit you were on 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, for the last 100 million years, which is the tallest, most successful man with the most resources, who's the most, you know, everything, right? Powerful, this, that, and the other. Women go to that man and give access to their bodies. They submit, they commit, you know. And here's something that sucks for you guys, and you can take it up with the creator. It's not my fault. I'm just reporting the truth. Women right now are struggling spiritually because they've evolved to be away over 100 million years. And what they have now reasoned is that they want to determine their own value from their own accomplishments. They don't want their value to be determined by the caliber of the man that they can attract and keep. But that is how other women evaluate you, and that is how men evaluate you. So again, this is this, you know, separation between how you want things to be and what the reality of things are. And you're still making all your interpersonal life choices based off of trying to consolidate on the highest value man that you can get. And all the independent bullshit that you guys kick, when you meet me, you throw the shit out the window. When you meet guys like me, you throw the shit out the window, right? I meet women who kick that independent bullshit all the time. And then they run into a man who's actually running some shit, who says what he means what he says, can lead, checks their boxes physically, right? And then what do? They fold like a fucking lawn chair on all that feminist bullshit. And then if you don't pick them, then they hate you for it and blame the patriarchy and call you a user and all of this stuff. But the truth of the matter is their mindset disqualified them. And because they're women and they live in this zero accountability space, no second place trophies, everybody is, no, there's no losers, everybody can win. If you're fat, you're fabulous, right? The mother nature, which is accept you, love and acceptance and nurturing, which is a good thing, and we need that. But you can't run a society with that, because societies have the goals of survival. And whenever you have a goal present, right, then you're going to have to organize to accomplish that goal. And natural state of organization is a hierarchy, and men will always fight to the top of that hierarchy, which makes all hierarchies that are both male and female, where both men and women have access to them, patriarchal. The patriarchy. That's how it manifests. You can't escape it. You can't escape the patriarchy, because it is natural for when people have an outcome they want, like a society has the outcome of survival, right? Then people are always going to organize to try to get to that that outcome, and that will create a hierarchy, right? Based off of a division of responsibility and the importance, the prioritization of that responsibility. And in a hierarchy, men will always exist at the top of it if it's based off of competency, because we have the burden of performance of attracting women. And so we're always going to outwork you guys, because at the end of the day, when you look at boat parties and stuff like that, all the guys who are out there on a boat party have to own a boat, or they have to be somebody that puts them on the boat. And for women to get a ticket to the big show, they just got to sit on some nice ass and know when to shut up. And some of y'all don't even have to know when to shut up if your ass is nice enough. So for men, there's a burden of performance to get a ticket to the big show. And for women, there is not. And because there is that burden of performance, and we've been endowed with a more stoic emotional position, so our feelings and emotions get in our way less of us accomplishing things, right? And in addition to that, we're a third larger than you guys on average, meaning that our bodies are meant to go stronger for longer. Because of these natural things that we have been endowed with, men will always outcompete women to the top of the hierarchy. We always will. So every structure is intrinsically always going to be patriarchal, because you guys don't fuck losers. Sorry, not sorry. I hope that made sense to you. So men, when we give you criticism and we tell you what's right or we tell you what's wrong, right? It's because we have to be in touch with reality. We don't get to ignore reality because of how it makes us feel. We have to be in touch with reality because we need to maximize outcomes if we want to reproduce, if we want outcomes, because nobody's ever going to come into our lives because we got a nice ass and bail us out of our bad decision making, bail us out of a lack of an ability to be consistent and create any outcome. For men, you only get to spend your own money. You get to spend what you make. That's it. A man who spends other people's money isn't a man anybody respects. But women get to spend other people's money, right? A woman gets to spend her dad's money. She gets to spend her husband's money. She gets to spend her boyfriend's money. She gets to spend the government's money. She gets to spend everybody's money. People are willing to give things to women because the default perception of you guys is that you are weak, that you need help, and that it's okay to help you. Because just because you need help, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. But men who have not figured out how to cover the expense of their own lives are seen as deficient. That is society. That's men and women that view them that way. Men view them that way because we don't try to work with, or see these guys as peers. And women pass judgment on these men because you ain't willing to fuck them. Right? So you're arguing against the basic tenets of reality, things that are not ever going to change unless you guys want to start fucking the losers and rewarding men with access to your body and allowing them to reproduce into the next generation, independent of the fact that they're competitive and successful. And if you were to do that, then you would destroy society, because society needs to work for us to survive, right? We all benefit from the group. And because we all benefit from the group has to actually be able to create outcomes that are going to sustain human beings, right? And because we need to create outcomes that are going to, they have a performance metric, and that the cost of the lack of performance is death, right? Is the group can't sustain itself, the quality of life decreases, right? Then because of that, hold on, this dog sees a rabbit. Nandi, come here. Heel. So because of that, you guys, that's what we're seeing right now in the black community. In the black community, you have women who don't want their value to be determined by the quality of the man that they can secure. They want to get degrees and use the same metric for their value that men have always used, which is whether or not they're competitive and successful in life. And so they're having their children with Pookie and Ray Ray ass niggas. They're having their children with dudes that are not competitive, successful. And so what's happening? The children are growing up without fathers, because men who lack a desire to compete in this world do that because they lack an understanding of responsibility. And when you reproduce with these men, then they aren't going to be responsible for the children. So even if you were to get what you want, which is what's happening in the black community, the black community is the feminist idea applied and fully realized. And because it's the feminist idea applied and fully realized, strong, powerful women who don't need men, who are single, independent, here's what you now have. 84 out of 100 babies born are born outside the bonds of marriage. And these children are confused and cannot compete in the world. They don't know their place because they were born not being raised with any of that masculine energy. So standards, responsibility, accountability, structure, the general self-awareness, and an understanding of the mechanics of reality, it's all missing. So the women end up doing a terrible, because they don't grow up with any masculinity, they do a terrible imitation of masculinity. And that's why you have black women who are overly combative and disagreeable and aggressive, because they're sticking up for themselves and being their own man by emulating a man. And they're emulating it's a bad imitation. It's an exaggerated caricature of male aggression. And then you have young men who grow up with no masculine frame. And so because of that, they are either overly violent as well, because they are this mutated, exaggerated male aggression imitation as well, or they take the other route and they don't want to grow up and become a man because their mother, they've never seen the value of masculinity in their lives, because they were raised with a woman who was raised by a woman who was raised by another woman. You got this line of women who have no value, no morals, no values, no morals, who are untenable, who can't be kept by any man, and or their selection in men is fucking trash. And they do that on purpose. The reason their selection to men is trash is because they don't want to have to live under the authority of a man that's going to tell them to sit down and shut up and give them any structure or discipline or standards or accountability. So instead what they do is they submit in the bedroom, and that's it. And you have fun as a guy, and then they get pregnant, and then if you do try to marry them and work things out, it doesn't work, because they don't understand how to exist in masculinity, in the presence of masculinity. Or they don't end up submitting, in which case the man doesn't give it a try, in which case the guy is an immediate Pookie or Ray Ray, which might have been the reason she selected him in the first place, because she wants a zero accountability position. So that's what we're dealing with. Hey, that's what we're dealing with. That's male and female. That's masculine and feminine. I'm sorry, say again? Oh, yeah. Yeah, no chasing each other. Yeah, well, she's a good girl. She doesn't really chase squirrels or cats. Her beef is with other dogs.
He likes to chase them and then turn around after he ran them off.
Yeah, she probably won't run off. She'll probably eat that cat. All right, so you guys, that's the walk we're gonna do for today. I'm gonna finish my walk and enjoy my pen and enjoy my Saturday morning. I hope that this made sense to you guys, and I appreciate you staying on for the whole talk. All right, see you next time.